it's inevitable. Almost every call, someone has to be muted, and this time it was me. So good afternoon and evening and morning to everyone, wherever you might be on the planet, and welcome to this session. I thank you for joining us, and I'm excited. I hope everyone else is. So we in this panel on mentors, champion, and mentees, we have quite a diverse geographic, diverse in almost every way panel, which I hope will be interesting. So we have people here from Brisbane and Toronto and Angola, and I'm coming to you from sunny Jakarta. So what I'd like to do is each of the panel. So we did have an order that's been a little bit muddled up to introduce themselves. So give us about 1 or 2 minutes and tell us about yourself. So from the top of Andrew Keith, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Keith. Yes, hello everybody. Andrew Keith here from Brisbane in Australia. I'm a technical director with Aurecon engineering, technical consulting and advisory company. And at 55 years young, I've only been here a few years, all my career, but that's only 30 some years, so not very long yet. So I've still learning the ropes. But I'm a civil engineer by training, and I started my career doing technical civil engineer things, as civil engineers do. And when I was 28, I had this amazing opportunity that I wasn't looking for, but that came my way through good fortune, really, to go to Indonesia and establish an operation for the company in Indonesia, and really that really set the course for the rest of my career. So from being a technical civil engineer, I became an office manager, a business manager, business development person, and that led me to other leadership roles in the organisation when I returned to Australia from Indonesia, and in the I guess the latter stages of my career, I've become specialised in being a generalist. And doing all sorts of things across all sorts of different parts of the business, and generally being a project manager and someone who can bring many different parts and disciplines together for a single purpose.
Thanks, Andrew. So Karl is a late substitute for Karen. So if you can introduce yourself next, please, Karl.
Sure. Thanks, Keith. I'm Karl Lawrence. I'm actually in Phoenix, so another one of the geographies to add here in the United States. I'm the Chief Technical Officer for Equilibrium Mining, and I basically lead a team of engineers to develop technical solutions for large-scale mining projects, very much so related to a lot of computing and data solutions. And what we do mainly is assess stability underground open pit mines, just to make sure everybody gets home safely. So when I started my career, after high school, early years of university, I was one of those people that I wouldn't say I had a clear path. I do admire those people. I have a lot of family members that, really know what they want to be exactly. And I was struggling to sort of know exactly what I would do. And I'd say even after university, I might not have exactly had a clear path of that. So, I remained open. In the end, I did applied math and physics, and then did computational fluid mechanics and geomechanics, and just found my way around a variety of different disciplines. So, in my career, I've worked for large companies, I've worked for myself, I've worked for engineering consultings, and then I worked for manufacturing for a while, and even big tech like Google and those types of companies. So, I really moved around. I think the main thing for me throughout my career is, I remained open both to location and to the type of work. I really just appreciated a challenge and was surrounded by some great people that helped guide me along the way, and the mentors. So, I think that's, I feel fortunate to be here. As we go through our careers, even now, like, I still have some great mentors. And all of the people around me are still my mentors, my colleagues, my friends. They also help provide me guidance in every step that I took in my career. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Karl. So, Daniella, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Daniella Dimitrov. I'm based in Toronto. I am a finance executive in the metals and mining space, and a corporate director. Currently, I'm a director of zinc producer on the mining and smelting side, and I'm also a corporate director of a company that is in the chemicals space. So still industrial, but outside of the mining space specifically. Karl, I started out thinking that I knew what I wanted to do when I was going to go to law school and be a lawyer, and that's what I started. I finished law school and practiced for a few years, and then realized that I wanted to be part of a team that created value, received the advice and created value, rather than be an advisor that gave advice to others so that they can go on to make decisions as a team and go on and build that value. So I transitioned from being a lawyer to financial services. And I ended up in financial services because at that time that I made the transition, it was an industry where there was a lot of consolidation between the independents, and there was a lot of activity in the space. And I ended up joining one of my bigger clients that I had as a lawyer. I spent 8 years in financial services, initially as general counsel. Then I transitioned into corporate development. And ultimately, we had the company I was working for did 8 acquisitions in 3 years. And all of the companies that we acquired had been themselves consolidators. And so they were consolidating, but never really integrating. I then took on the chief operating officer role and the director of integration. So quite a pivot from being a lawyer. When the financial crisis hit at the end of 2008, the activity in the financial services space really declined. Everybody started looking inwards and optimizing, and I found myself out of a job. And at that time, which now was the beginning of 2009, the mining industry, the activity was starting to pick up. Iron ore prices, had gone up, and there was a lot of other activity in the space. So I found myself transitioned into the mining industry. And again, sort of by fluke, not really, now I'm going to go to mining because there's a lot going on there, but more some of the people that I had connected with in my legal career drew me into the mining industry, and I've been there ever since. In mining, I have been a CFO, a CEO of operating mining companies. I ended up going back to school and getting my executive MBA a number of years ago in order to continue to work on skill sets that I didn't feel I had developed as much, such as managing high-performing teams, organizational behavior, and so on. And so I have also pivoted from different roles to different industries, and continue to look at myself as a toolkit, and continue to build on the capabilities that I've developed through the piece. Along the way, similar to Andrew and to Karl, I've had people that have supported me, mentored me, and helped me in the transitions that I have made to give me the confidence and the courage to actually take those steps and take on the roles or take on the challenges of changing industries, which is not easy. So I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Daniella. And last but certainly not least, Celma, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, so my name is Celma Antonio. I'm currently a student at University of Arizona. I'm pursuing my bachelor in mining engineering. And I had some unforeseen circumstances that happened in my life that delayed my graduation. But thanks to the help of mentors, people that helped me and motivated me to find the best strategy to overcome those unpredicted and kind of unfair circumstances that happen in my life. Now I'm finally gonna be able to graduate. I'm really, really excited to finally become a mining engineer. And right now I'm trying to get help, to find as much help as possible to be able to find a job, because I found out that it can be a little bit tricky for an international student and someone studying overseas to actually get an opportunity and get a company to sponsor you. So yeah, I don't have a lot of experiences yet, but I'm really excited to get into the industry.
And gosh, that excitement's infectious, let me tell you. so what I'd like the panel to do is just put yourself in the mind of Celma. You're young, you're about to graduate from your first job, which is a little while ago. So what do you wish you had known and thought about then that would have made a difference? So if we keep, feel free to just talk freely, but otherwise just keep going in the same order we were in before. So, if anyone wants to speak up first, go first. Otherwise, Andrew, and then Karl, and then Daniella.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Looking back on my career and seeing where it's led, I never imagined that that when I started that I would be anything but becoming more and more specialized in a very technical area, and that's all I thought that being an engineer was. And so I wish that I knew that there were lots of other different parts of the industry and different industries that could use my skills that weren't necessarily my technical engineering skills. Because to be quite frank, as a technical engineer, I make a really great project manager. I never was the most technical of engineers, and I'm not my wife jokes that she says she married an engineer and has to get a handyman to come and do all the jobs around the house because he's hopeless at them. So, I sort of wish that I'd known a little earlier in my career that there were other career pathways that I could follow that could make the use of my technical background, but where I didn't have to be an engineer just doing calculations. So, I said before that at age 28, I got an opportunity to go to Indonesia and build a business there, and that was sort of pretty much by luck. But it was that opportunity that really broke me out of that technical mold and allowed me to see the other opportunities that were available.
Daniella or Karl, sorry. Either of you, off you go for it.
Oh, good. Yeah, for me, I guess when I graduated and I was extremely focused technically, right? I didn't really know where I belonged. And I think the one thing I wish I knew was that, I was always not sort of knowing what path to take, where my journey would go. And what I learned throughout those first few years is that most companies that are interviewing you and hiring you, they actually care a lot and they're actually trying to set you up for success as well. So they're they're just as motivated in terms of establishing that mentor-mentee setup and getting you the resources and tools that you need. So I was extremely nervous, always trying to prove myself sort of when I began, and not really taking advantage fully of that team dynamic and what was there for the taking. And particularly today with forums like these and just the general industry as a whole, I think there's a lot of focus on making sure that mentoring happens early. And people are not expected to know it all. Like we're hiring junior people for a reason, partly to expand our teams, partly to expand our skill sets because the industry changes. And for me, I think the dynamic of working with the younger people coming out of school, like you said, Keith, it is motivating, right? You get energized by it. And we learn about what the different generational things are between, people from my generation and then the next group that are sort of coming through. So it's helpful to learn even now for me. Like I commonly interact with, people coming out of school. I typically hire right out of undergrad or graduate in terms of building my teams. And that's energizing to have that youth and have a lot of that fresh perspective on the industry. So it is daunting when you're coming out of school. You feel like, you need to get a job, you need to do this, but, be patient, find your spot. You might not have the right fit at first. So remain open to the challenges.
Thanks, Karl and Daniella.
Similar to Karl, when I finished school, and it was 3 years of undergrad and 3 years of law school, followed by a required 1 year of working at a law firm so that you can then write the bar. So it was a 7-year process. I also was quite antsy to just kind of get going. And so since I was on that path, once I got called to the bar, I was okay, like head down. I'm now finally 7 years later, I'm finally a lawyer, and lots going on and work very, very hard in my first few years in that career. And I, thinking back, I wish I had taken more time to speak to to the lawyers that I was working with, understand for those that practice for 30 years, what kept them there, for those that were leaving, why were they leaving, and really understand more about, what they liked or didn't like and the motivation and so on. And also, from sitting in that chair, I at least had the benefit of touching different companies in different industries. And so that I really appreciated that opportunity. And I took the opportunity to learn more about the business and not just, toil away on the 15-page legal memo and deliver that up. So, over time, and it took me a really, really long time to get this, that actually people want to help you. And so all you have to do is actually just ask. And I know sometimes people look like they're really busy and there might be a big age difference or a big difference in seniority. But if I could leave something to those listening on the call, just take the time, be curious, and just talk to as many people as you can, and don't be intimidated. People want to help.
Thanks, Daniella. So with that in mind, Celma, sorry to put you on the spot like this, and thinking that the industry, the senior people in the industry probably look like the four people on the screen here. There's three older guys and one woman, so dominated by older men. Is there anything would just help a young person just ask? It sounds like an easy thing to say, just ask, but what is it that holds people back from just asking, and what would help make that easier?
Yeah, like you said, it's not actually that easy as it sounds to just ask, but that's actually, but it's still the best advice to just ask. Like Daniela said, you need to just go, don't be intimidated and ask. But there is definitely a lot of things that play a part that makes people to be afraid of asking, like people's personality. Some people are not used to go and ask for things, so it can get a little bit in the way. But like Carl said, we also have this like mentality as freshly graduated student that we get a little bit afraid. We think that we need to know it all. We get afraid of asking questions because we get afraid of sounding maybe a little bit not smart enough. But with time, I found out that it's actually better to just ask, because sometimes there were times that I asked questions and people were like, oh, I actually never thought about that. It's a great question. Let's find out the answer together. So asking and be open to new opportunities, because when we are graduating, we may thinking, oh no, now I'm a mine engineer, I need to find a job in mine engineer. But sometimes it's just better to explore, and you will see that you're gonna learn a lot, that actually things that you can apply on your career on the future. But yeah, that's asking, it's actually a great advice.
It is indeed, and thank you, Celma. Keep it up, just asking, because you would be surprised how often when you just ask, you're the first person who have ever asked that question, and it is a catalyst for change. It is remarkable how often that happens. Another thing, oh, I wish someone had asked that question before. So as I just go and find my notes again.
Just while you do that, Keith, to
Okay.
Chelma's point about not necessarily finding a job in mining engineering, one of the mentoring roles I have is with the University of Queensland, where they get their PhD, the students who are doing PhDs who are coming up to graduate in a formal program with people in industry to help them find their way into industry. And one of the first points that I typically make with them is that having done a PhD, they're probably the single person in the world, along with their supervisor, who knows the most about that very, very small, detailed portion of the body of knowledge. And as they leave the university, they need to be prepared to never ever use that particular piece of knowledge ever again in their career, because what their PhD is probably, they'd likely get a job in a similar line, but may never ever work on that particular thing that they've been studying quite that way again. But what the PhD has set them up to do and tells an employer is that they're dedicated and disciplined and can find out answers. And so, for younger people who might be scared of not knowing enough, is you've demonstrated that you know how to find out answers, right? That's the thing that I, as when I'm working with younger people, really value, is that they know how to go and find the answer.
Thanks, Andrew. And it's a neat segue into the next question I had in the list. So, mentoring is an umbrella term. So, there are, can be informal, can be what we're doing now, or it can be a formal structured program. And I just was hoping to go around the room and talk about experience with formal structured versus informal, and any view on, pros, cons. Does it make it easier? Does it make it harder? So that'd be good. So maybe, Celma, to you first. Have you had the ability to access like formal versus informal? Have you found them useful?
Yeah, I've had experience with both of them, and I personally prefer informal because with me, in my experience, the people that were mentoring me were actually people that I went and asked. Like, I feel like I need mentoring in this area of my life, and I would like to get your help, because I was looking at them and I noticed that they had what I wanted in my life. But with the formal program, it was actually at UFA, and they paired me with someone that I think was also starting to learn a little bit how to mentor someone. And it was a little bit hard for me to understand exactly what I need help with, because I also started getting mentorship from someone. So it was hard for me to understand, oh, I need help with this and this. And because we didn't have that connection, the relationship before, she didn't feel open to ask questions, and I didn't feel also open to ask questions. So sometimes we would get in the meeting and I was like, oh, I don't know what I need help with this week. But with the informal, I was contacting the person. I was like, oh, I need help with this and that. Can you actually help me with this? So in my experience, I always was more lucky with the informal mentorship.
That's great. So Lauren has just apparently joined us a little late. So Lauren, sorry to put you on the spot quickly, but can you perhaps introduce yourself, just 1 to 2 minutes, and then we'll loop everyone back in.
Sorry for apparently not understanding how to use a clock this morning. So I do investor relations for a company called Reyna Silver. I was lucky to grow up in the space because my father's an exploration geologist, and I'm really fortunate to have some spectacular mentors and people who've been pushing me to take the geology background and simultaneously, use it to the next step. And so, my job essentially is translating geology into English to the best of my ability. And I'm also a big proponent of other young people getting into this space, because I think it's an incredible place to be, and the future in the space is really interesting.
That is brilliant. So we're just talking there now about the structured versus informal, formal mentoring programs versus informal, and maybe Daniella, can you just tell us your experience with that?
Sure. I agree with Celma, which is that, and it's similar to, to having a coach, is I do believe that you've got to have, a personality match, if I can call it that. If you have an existing, relationship where you've had the opportunity to connect and build trust, that works obviously even better. But it's not, always the case that you have those set of circumstances, or sometimes you might want to step out of your own, network and set of connections in order to be able to get advice and support outside of your own network. So informal, some ability to align personalities and objectives, and a feeling that mentor can actually really help you and support you with advice. And also from a mentor perspective, it's also makes it easier for the mentor to actually be able to provide that advice and support, because when you don't have that, that pre-existing connection, it just makes it harder in that, and you've got to have a period of maybe exploration and understanding and creating that social connection to then be able to say, okay, now I understand a bit more about your background, where you come from, your objectives, and how I can really help and support you.
Thanks, Daniela. And Karl, any?
Yeah, I was just going to add, like, I've been involved in both the structured formal and then the informal ones, and it does tend to work better in terms of your immediate steps towards your career growth, to have that personal connection and trust with the person that is advising you. The one thing I would say that has been a bit helpful is just, you know, have that self-recognition, understand sort of, and I think Daniela mentioned this, right, when she wanted to make a career change, or when you're looking for something else, like being open to other things. And you know, if you want to get more into the financial side of things, then it might not be the same mentor that you have. And typically people aren't constrained to one mentor. Like I found myself 5, 6, 7 mentors, like some for different aspects of my career. So look outside of what your immediate skill set is and what you might want to evolve into in the future. And no one person has all of the answers. So I think building that trust and then getting an objective third party is also helpful. Like I also want people that, you know, sometimes it's harder for the mentor to be a bit more critical, but sometimes you need, you know, someone to just open it up and say, okay, we could be doing this better, or setting some different career objectives. So I think both are helpful in my opinion, but they do well rely on you trusting the person on the other side, both from the mentor and the mentee perspective. So
an interesting word that came up a couple of times there is the word trust. And perhaps touch on that. How do you establish that trust in a mentor-mentee relationship? And you know, it works both ways. So maybe Lauren, over to you first. So I'm going to pick on you for being late.
I totally understand that. You know, I think a huge part of it from more of a mentee side, as it were. You know, you develop trust as part of that relationship, as you get to know someone and understand that, you know, the idea or the suggestion that you're being given isn't some crazy thing that you're being told to do, that there's actually some value in it. And so there's a trust in terms of learning that the advice that you're being given can be very useful and is something that you should follow through on, as well as trusting in yourself that you can, you know, that what someone believes that you're capable of doing is also something that you can execute. And then I think there's also the component where your mentor has to trust you. If they put you in touch with someone, if they make that connection, they say, hey, I think this person's great for this, you should take a chance. There has to be that level of trust that you're actually going to follow through, that you're going to be the person that you present yourself as with them. Can you then do that when they say, hey, you should apply to this job and I'll give a recommendation, or I heard this opportunity came up, you know, you should take it. And I think that's sort of the two-way, the main two-way street from a mentee side of things, which is that you have to follow through. And that's where the trust is built with your mentor in many ways.
Thanks, Lauren.
To jump on a comment that Lauren made, which I thought was a great one. From a mentor's perspective, what I have found in the past is also be vulnerable and show that vulnerability. You know, for me, pivoting between industries and pivoting between roles, it's not that I stepped into these roles and I thought, yeah, okay, great, I'll just now become the chief operating officer of, you know, a large brokerage firm and I can do this. I lack confidence. I had to be talked into. I had to go home and think about it for 3 days, think that I couldn't do it. And so I think that that is a way of of creating that trust. If the mentor and mentee don't necessarily know each other, is to show vulnerability and share some of the past experiences of where something's worked or not worked, or you lacked courage or confidence, or how you went about certain decisions, and that sharing of how you approached some of the challenges on your journey as an individual in your career does help.
Thanks, Dan. Well, just to do the audience online, just to let know, in this sort of format, we can't see the audience, so feel free, chime in at absolutely any time with questions. We would love to hear from you. So in the meantime, Chelma, you're going to pick up the theme here of trust and run with it.
So, sorry. Yeah. I'll say personally with me, what happened is that when I would talk to people that as a mentor, they would recognize my strength and my skills, and that kind of made me feel a little bit better about myself, and made me feel like I can trust and be open with that person. And I start trusting on that person, because what happens sometimes when we are in certain situations, we don't see it fully as it's happening. So you have people showing you things that you are actually doing great, and it is just that feeling that the mentor was able to transmit to me, and then made me trust. And also when I saw that, usually when I would have a session one-on-one, and then the mentor would be able to show that he understands my situation, he understands what I'm saying, because sometimes you can talk to people and they are not actually listening. That's just me, how I build trust, when I see that, okay, you actually listening to what I'm saying, and you actually want to help me, and you're actually there for me. That build the trust, and then I start sharing with people.
Well, thank you. So Andrew, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Keith, look, to link it back to the sort of topic of informal versus formal, birds of a feather flock together, right? And so I found in my career that my informal mentors were senior people that I was working with at the time, who we connected while working, and that just developed into a very informal mentoring relationship where the word mentor or mentee would never have been mentioned, right? And so you'd look back after 5 years ago, oh wow, he was a mentor or she was a mentor to me in that part of my career, without even using the term. And so trust in that situation just develops naturally, right? It comes about through your working relationship and so on. More formally, obviously, it's more difficult because you as mentioned by some of the other speakers, you don't necessarily know the person before the relationship. With Chelma just indicated that active listening is an important thing for a mentor to take on, because the mentoring relationship is not about the mentor, it's about the mentee, and it's about what the mentee's goals and aspirations for their career are, and for the mentor to really listen to those and provide input and and prompting to help them along the way. One of the mentors I had would say to me, "I'm never going to advise you anything. I'm just going to ask you questions. You have to find out your own advice from the questions." Right. So, developing trust in that relationship, that formal relationship can be a little bit difficult. And one of the things that I think helps it is that, companies, we're setting up one in my company now, have these formal relationships. And the mentor, I think, has got to be prepared to really take on board the mentees' aspirations that may go beyond working at that company, right? It's got to be able to develop that and keep their aspirations that may not align with the particular company confidential, and have confidentiality in that relationship.
A very good points there, Andrew. Thank you. And Karl, you've been sitting patiently.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to bring up, I agree with the point that Lauren made, is that, we, as mentors, when, we are invested in these younger people, or the people we're mentoring, and it's like, we want to see them execute, and, we're not really defining the roadmap, we're just helping guide. So to see young people or whoever we're mentoring execute something that we talked about, I think a lot of us take, a lot of gratification out of that. I personally love to see my mentees succeed, and it's just a part of, building that team, and you're all a part of that team. And to see your mentee succeed, it's just as much gratification on our side as, someone mentioned, having your mentor actually listen to you and understand you, and the trust, it just continues to develop when you have that. And like Daniella said, you sort of humanize the relationship. You make it so that, they recognize that both of us are sort of, we have challenges, we've overcome challenges, we've made mistakes, and sharing some of that certainly helps build that trust in that relationship. But the success and the gratification is felt by both sides of that party. I love getting mentors, and I love helping them sort of make decisions, or myself even learn about their decisions, because maybe I'm not the best person to advise, and maybe the best advice I can give them is to talk to somebody else, maybe one of my former mentors, or maybe somebody else in the industry.
Brilliant. So I'm just getting a little message that we're within the last 10 minutes. So as I try to warn everyone, this goes very, very quickly. So really, I'd like to turn it over to the panel and go, is there something that you want to get out there to mentees, mentors, everyone else who's online listening is going to look at the recording, about mentors, mentees, champions, and what message we can give to inspire hope. So maybe I'm just going the way my screen's laid out. So on the bottom left is Celma. So I'll start there and go clockwise.
I guess the last thing that I just would say is the things that we already said. Just ask, because I know how it's hard. I am an introvert. I'm really shy. I avoid going to places because I know that I won't be able to talk to people. Like for this conference, I talked to one of my mentors, and I was like, I think I won't do it, because I just don't see myself speaking or being able to speak. And like Karl said, she actually shared a story with me that she was also attending a conference, and she would be a speaker, and she didn't want to do it. But then when she did, a lot of people came to her and was like, I'm actually glad that you were here because I connected with you. So after hearing her story, I was like, okay, I'm gonna just do this. But yeah, just put yourself out there. It's really, really hard, but you need to put yourself out there and ask. You can be afraid because people might say no because they look busy, but you need to ask because you never know.
Thank you so much, Celma. And I can tell you at least 50% of the people on this call are very strongly expressed introverts, and we feel you. So Lauren, over to you.
Yeah, I would say, you know, I missed the front part of this, but, you know, I would say that being grateful to your mentors and expressing how thankful you are for their time is something that's really important, because, you know, I think everyone should be a mentor in some capacity, but not everyone has the bandwidth to take on those roles and to help out. And, you know, whether it's an informal setting, or especially if it's an informal setting, but also if it's in a formal setting, you know, that's something that I think there's a beautiful moment, especially when you've come far enough along, and it might not be initially, it can be 5 years, 10 years down the road, but when you can take a mentor out for lunch to say thank you, and to make sure that you acknowledge how they got you where you are now, and that's something that you can look forward to doing down the road. The other component is make sure that you're very respectful of your mentor's time, and really think through and being realistic about, you know, what you can follow through with, and take a chance. Sometimes you're going to get a suggestion where they're like, oh, you need to do this, and you're going, that is absolutely crazy, there's no way anyone would ever do XYZ that, you know, it's being suggested is totally possible for you. And, you know, that's how I ended up in IR. I did not think this was the direction I was going, but I had a mentor who said, no, you should give it a shot, I think you could be good at it. And, you know, if I hadn't listened to her, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And, you know, that's one of the beautiful things about mentorship and the relationship that you develop, is sometimes people see something in you that you wouldn't otherwise see. And, you know, it can be a beautiful relationship. So.
Well, thank you. And I'm just keeping an eye on the time. So Karl.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess the 2 points that I'd make, and I think we talked about this earlier, there's a lot of resources out there. Companies are building, they're putting them in place for people. So take advantage of those resources. I mean, they're there for people to start developing those relationships. The other thing I just wanted to mention is often, you know, particularly the senior people, they get extremely busy, right? So the most helpful thing to me is, you know, engage your mentee, like the younger generation, like prompt the mentor, right? Set up a regular call, even if it's quarterly. It's helpful for us, right? We typically we're doing a lot of multitasking, and spending that time is actually something we look forward to. So like prompt your mentor, get something regular going, and start to develop that trust. And I think that will help longer term, and just you to be able to identify, you know, what you might want from your career, particularly when you're early on in this.
Thanks, Karl. And Daniella, you're next on my screen.
Be flexible. The relationship can take, you know, different structures. It could be a question over email or LinkedIn. It could be a coffee. It could be a phone call, depending on the person and depending on how busy or not busy the person is, although everybody's really busy. I think that really could help facilitate and broaden the support and the advice that you can get. Be prepared and know what you want to get out of it. If it could just be, hey, I just want to share a number of concerns that I'm really worried about and what's keeping me at night, or listen, I'm really looking to make a career pivot, or I'm really looking for a job, or I'm really looking for the answer to this question. I think that really helps in setting both the time and the format of that interaction and connection. I know certainly from my chair, it does help me on that, and helps in helping as many people as one can. If you're looking for an introduction, one thing I always say to people is, instead of write the introduction for me. So, and what you want out of the introduction, so that I can just take that and forward it to the person, rather than me sitting here and trying to take somebody's CV, dissect it into 3 lines and send it. So there are a lot of tools that you can also use to, again, broaden that support that you're seeking, just outside of a regular mentor-mentee interaction and relationship.
It's brilliant. So everyone, we've come to the end of our time, which is all too soon. We don't have any questions from the Q&A, I'm just with the format of this sort of webinar, we can't see whether we put everyone to sleep or they're deeply engaged or otherwise. But thank you, all of you, from me. I've learned a lot, and I'd love to keep talking, but unfortunately our time is up. So thank you, everyone, and good luck. And we've been asked to just stay in the camera for 10 seconds post wrap, and after we do it. So just everyone, if you've just got a quick 5 seconds final. So Andrew first, quick,
Well, certified introvert here, grade 1, and go out and find yourself a really good mentor.
And Daniella.
Have the courage, take chances, take opportunities, create opportunities.
Karl.
Yeah, be open to people, work environments, flexibility, and physical location, right? You don't know where. There's an amazing world, and there's lots of opportunity out there for people.
And Lauren.
Go fast, take chances, and say thank you at the end.
And Celma.
You can do it. Trust yourself and trust on your mentor.
Wow. Thank you, everyone.